Okay, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to this live revision session for A-Level Economics. Let's go over to the Team Economics panel today. We've got Jeff on the left, Kathy in the middle, and Ollie on the right. Give us a wave, guys, just to make sure you're there. Taking a break from a busy day of online teaching. Jeff, do you want to take us through how you want this session to work whilst people say hello in the chat window, and then as soon as we're ready, I'll flick the switch and we can start the session.
Okay, Jim. Hi everybody. We've got a really fun-packed 25-30-minute session for you. What we've done in this first session is think about some of the quantitative skills that you're going to need as A-level students. Everything from fractions, percentages, means, mediums, index numbers. It doesn't get much more exciting than the next 20-25 minutes. Now, we've got a chat window open. If you feel confident, always type your answer into the chat window. We get a feel, Kathy and Ollie and I can get a feel for the answers. But you don't have to type your answer in, but it's fantastic if you do. You might well need a calculator for this. So Jim, can we make a start please with our first activity? We have 4 multiple choice questions to keep you going. We're going to start in a fairly gentle way and gradually get more difficult. So here's the first question. The following table shows an index of production in the UK, the base year being 2016. Which of these statements is true? So have a go, please, have a go at this question. Thank you. Index number, index of production, the base year is 2016. Which of these statements? I'll give you a clue, by the way, just to help you. It's either A, B, C, or D. Now, when you're ready, type your answer in. You don't have to, but it's always fun if we get loads of people typing in. Thanks, Mega, for saying I'm an inspiration. That's very kind of you. This is the peak of the session. So about 10 more seconds, maybe. Type in your answer. We're getting quite a few answers. The bulk of people seem to be saying it's A. In fact, nobody yet has diverted from that. So, Jim, can we have the answer, please? The answer is A. Correct. Total production has fallen by 1/5. Now, when I tried this with my students this morning, quite a few of them chose D. I know what you're saying because I taught them. D is incorrect because total production in 2016 was 25% higher than it was in 2020. Always go back to the base. So from 2020 to 2016, we go from 80 to 100. That's a 25% increase. So it's not D, it's A. Brilliant start, Team Economics. Let's move on to question 2, Jim. Look at this table, which shows an index, again, of how many people are employed in the UK. The question is, what is the missing index number? I think you'll need a calculator for this. So have a go, please. So we have an index of employment from 2006. So we have a number of people employed from 2016 through to 2018. What's the missing index number? Is it A, B, C, or D? Take a moment and do the calculation. Don't forget, always calculate the change from the base year. Always go back to the base for your calculation. So you're looking to convert some data in 2018 to an index number for that year, but relative to the base. And the answers are flying in. Laura's got an answer D, Ned's saying D. Izzy's saying D. Nikita is saying D. Kabir said B. A few people saying B, actually. I'll give you another 5-10 seconds. Okay, and I think, Jim, I think we're good for the answer. Loads of answers coming in. Will Bowen said D. Great answer, Will. The answer is D. Correct. Now, a common error, by the way, is to calculate the 2018 data as a percentage of the 2017 figures. It's actually really cold outside today, and if I'm going out for a walk after the session's finished, I always think to myself, right, if you're going for a walk and it's cold, don't forget the base. Don't forget the base layer. Always go back to the base when you're doing a calculation. The answer there was D. Let's move on to question 3. Which of these is not an example of a weighted index? Which of these is not an example of a weighted index? What do we think for this question? Consumer Price Index, FTSE 100, Human Development Index. What do we think is not an example of a weighted index? If you're confident, type your answer into chat. You don't have to. It's fantastic when people do, so we get a feel for what the mood of the group is. A load of people saying C And the answer, Jim, is it is indeed C. This is fantastic. What a great start. Yeah, a weighted index, an average index made up of a combination of other indices. Of course, the consumer price index is the classic example of using weights to reflect the importance of different goods and services in a household budget. Now, the weights change over time, and some items come in of the index and some items go out of the index. For example, in 2020, gluten-free cereals were included in the inflation calculation for the first time, but chicken nuggets were taken out. The world is changing. My last multiple choice question, Jim, please. Which of these is not a component index used in the Human Development Index? Last of the multiple choice questions, which of these is not a component index used in the calculation of the Human Development Index? Hopefully some of you students have been doing development economics. My students are doing it at the moment. An absolute flood of answers coming through here. And it looks like you're doing just as well on this question. The answer is, Jim, it's B, ecological diversity. Maybe it should be. Of course, it's a 1/3 weighting for education, life expectancy, and GNI per capita. But perhaps ecological diversity should be in there, particularly if you've read Kate Raworth's brilliant book, Donut Economics. There we go, 4 multiple choice questions to kick us off in this first session. So I'm now going to hand over to Kathy for the next activity, which I think, Kathy, is the bubble quiz.
It is the bubble quiz. I love bubble quizzes. So just in case there's anyone out there that I lead a sad life in which this is the highlight of my life, bubble quizzes. So in case there's anyone out there that isn't familiar with how these work, we're going to ask you a question and then you need to decide how many of the answers are correct. Maybe none of them are, one of them, 2, 3, or maybe all of them are right. So Jim, can we have the first question, please? So here we are. UK households on average saved £5 for every £100 of income in 2020. Which of these represents the ratio of household savings to income? Remember, it might be none of these, all of these, or anything in between. So have a think, add your answers to the chat. I'm having a look. There's some answers coming in. Do remember, it might be more than one. Could be quite a few more than one. Lots and lots and lots and lots of answers coming in now. So it's really speeding up. We'll just give you a few more seconds. I'm going to be a bit tougher than Jeff. I'm going to say, do give it a go. Do give it a go. Even if you're not 100% sure, just try and enter your answer into the chat. Right, it looks like we've got just about all the answers we're going to get. Jim's put them up on the screen for us. So the correct answers here are B, C, and D. They are all different ways of expressing this ratio. Now, A, of course, is incorrect. If you wanted to show the ratio in this way, then the correct answer would have been 0.05, not 0.5, that's a half, 0.05. So these bubble quizzes, I love them because they are just such a good way of testing how well you know something. Right, we've got one more for you. So Jim, can we have the next question, please? Okay, which of these is a valid term used to show how a statistical population can be divided? So again, same thing again. And none of these right? 1, 2, 3, or all of them. So answers on the chat, please. Lots of answers flooding in. Lots of correct answers flooding in, which is fabulous. Goodness me, they're going faster than I can watch. This is absolutely the A team that we've got on this call here today. Right, it is slowing down. So I'm thinking people are more or less there. Okay, and the answers are up on the screen. These are all correct answers. So they are all valid terms we use to show how a statistical population can be divided. So a percentile, of course, is when we divide something into hundredths, quintiles into fifths, quartiles into quarters, and deciles into tenths. So loads of you got this right. So super well done. Right, I'm going to hand back to Jeff now because he's got some calculation countdowns.
Thank you, Kathy. It's early days in the session. It's early days. I just have a feeling that this group we have with us today could be in the top decile of the Economists taking A-level this year. I just have a feeling.
I think so. Yeah,
or maybe
absolutely.
even the top percentile. But wait till my own students arrive. That will change things. Now, here we go. We're going to move on to calculation countdown. The great game show of mid-afternoon. We're going to give you 60 seconds or a minute, whichever is the greater, to arrive at the correct answers. Now, before we kick off, there are 3 calculation countdowns for my little section here. Before we kick off, you might not have heard of the productivity ratio before. The productivity ratio is basically a measure of productivity, and it can be measured either as output per worker or as a fraction of output over a given input. So your calculation challenge in a minute is to find the values for A and B. Jim, please start the clock. So we've got 3 calculation countdowns for you. These are oftentimes in short answer questions. Can you find the answers to A and B? 2 ways of expressing the calculation, the productivity ratio. Again, when you're ready, put your answers into the chat window. That would be great if you could do that. Oh, was that 60 seconds? That was quick. Time flies when you're enjoying yourself. So here we go. What do we think for the answers, Jim? If we can have the answers, please, coming through. So the answer is that A is 0.2 and that B is 30 over 5 or 6 over 1. The ratio of 30 to 5 or 6, well, if you bring it down to 6 to 1. So, okay, that's a productivity ratio expressing data output per worker in either ratio format or as expressed as a fraction of the input. Let's throw in a true and false question as we come through, either true or false here. As we add an extra unit of labor from 4 to 5, is productivity rising or falling? Is productivity rising, true or false, as we add an extra unit of labor? If you have a chance, do type in the answer into the chat window. Is the statement productivity is rising true or false? What do we think? And the answers are coming through. Okay, and Jim, can we have the answer to that one? The answer is that productivity is going up. It is true. Productivity is increasing, as shown by the data. Let's move on to our second calculation question. Now, this is a really interesting question. I love these kind of tables. Our next calculation question is about calculating total, average, and marginal cost. Here we go. 60 seconds. Can you calculate the values for A, B, and C? Have a go. Lovely selection of music here. So we've got some figures on output, total cost, average cost, and marginal cost. Can you fill in the gaps in this table? Can you calculate A, B, and C? What are the 3 values? A is average cost, B is marginal cost, and C is total cost. The clock is ticking. By the way, we're not charging any extra for the music, everybody. I just want to make that clear. I did ask a friend of mine to produce the music, Lady Gaga, but she sadly was too busy and therefore wasn't able to produce the music. 5 seconds to go. What are the values for A, B, and C? Okay, Jim, can you please reveal the answers? A is 40, B is 15, and C is 108. Yes, if output is 2 and the average total cost is 80, the average cost will be 40. Then we're told that the total cost goes up by 15 when the next unit is added, the third unit, so the marginal cost there will be 15. And then you then work out to the total cost of 4 units is 102, and you're told the marginal cost is 6 for the 5th unit. That takes it up to 108. Tiny little extra question coming up here, just before we move on to my last calculation question. Can anybody see what the fixed costs of this business are? If you can, type it into the chat window. Can anybody see what the fixed costs of this business are? Because you can work it out, but you have to just be a little bit canny and clever here. What are the fixed costs of this business? What do we think? Well, the answer here is 0, because for the first unit, the total cost is 50 and the marginal cost is 50. So it must have started from 0. So this is a good example of a business with 0 fixed costs. Okay, my last calculation question, Jim, is coming up, and here it is. In 2020, 3/4 of the 20.8 million economically active women in the UK were employed. 40% of those that were working were in part-time jobs. And your calculation challenge, you have 60 seconds, is how many economically active women in the UK were in part-time jobs. You're going to need a calculator. Have a go at this question. We often get quite a few labour market questions. We have to do a few bits of number crunching. 20.8 million economically active women were employed. 40% were in part-time jobs. How many economically active women were in part-time jobs? Again, when you're ready, please, if you can, put the answer into the chat window so we can see how you're getting on. Okay, I think the time's up. So, Jim, can you reveal our answers? The answer is 6.24 million. Quite a few of you got that, which is great. 3/4 of 20.8 million is 15.6, and then you multiply that by 0.4 to get the figure for 40% of that number, which comes to 6.24 million. Fabulous, awesome. I'm going to hand over to Kathy now for some true and false questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. Now, I've got 3 true or false questions, and I'm really not quite sure what's happened here because I've not been allowed any music for these. But anyway, we will soldier on. So the first true or false question, so get ready to enter your answers onto the chat. In 2020, it was estimated that 5.6 million people were employed in the public sector. The UK's total working population at the same time was 32.6 million. 17.2% of the UK's working population were employed in the public sector. Is this true or false? Answers on the chat as soon as you've worked this out. So some people are being super speedy. Lots of answers pouring in. Just give it a couple more seconds, although my chat seems to have paused. Oh no, another bunch of answers coming in. I think that's about time. Jim, could we have the answer up, please? And of course, it is true. So I can see from the chat, lots of people got this right. Not everybody, though. So all you needed to do here, if you got this wrong, was 5.6 million or 5.6 even divided by 32.6 times 100, and that's going to give you the answer 17.2%. Perfect. Okay, can we have the next question, please, then? All right, another true or false. In 2019, the UK's GDP per capita was 42,000 US dollars. In 2020, the UK's GDP per capita was 40,000 US dollars. The UK's GDP per capita decreased by 4.76% in this time period. True or false? Answers in the chat. So again, we got some super speedy people, but I'm going to give you a little bit longer so you can take your time, make sure you get this right. You do not want to drop these calculation marks unnecessarily. Couple more seconds, get your answers on the chat if you would like to. Perfect. Loads coming in, which is fabulous. Right, Jim, could we have the answer then, please? This is true. So the top tip, which Jeff was saying over and over in his first set of questions, when you're doing percentage changes, remember that you need to do the change over the start year. That's the typical mistake that people make. Right, my last question then, please. The third, true or false? In March 2020, the UK's official bank rate changed from 0.25% to 0.1%. This is a 150 percentage point change. Is this true or false? Let's have your answers, please, on the chat. Be lovely to think that absolutely everybody on this webinar was going to put their answers in. Lots of answers coming in now. Just give you a little bit more time. I can see loads of people have got this correct. A couple more seconds. Perfect. Jim, could we have the answer then, please? Well, this, of course, is false. So to get a percentage point change, all you need to do is to subtract one from the other. So the percentage point change here is a fall of 0.15 percentage points. That's it from me on this. I'm going to hand over now to Ollie for his questions. Ollie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. We're obviously keeping the best till last here with these questions. So this one, we've got a good question with two different statements. And what I would like you to do is read the statements and look at the data in the table on the right-hand side and then work out if either statement 1 is true or false and statement 2 is true or false. And there's a combination in the answers A, B, C, or D. So if you have a go at that, and then we'll discuss it after. Again, it'd be great if you could put all your answers in the chat once you've worked that out. So are they both true? Are they both false? Is one of them true, one of them false? Got some answers coming into the chat now. Very good. Seeing a few Bs, but not exclusively. Jack thinks it's D. Keep those answers coming in. Give you a few more seconds on this one. I know there's a bit of data to calculate. I'll give you 5 more seconds and then we'll get Jim to show us the answer. A few more coming in. I do know your name, Jack. Not quite famous though. Right, Jim, should we have the answer? So answer is B. So B is saying that the statement 1 is true and the statement 2 is false. So the mean house price, the mean obviously meaning the average, and how we do that, as most of you correctly worked out, was adding up all the individual data points and then dividing by the number of data points that are there. So adding up those numbers and then dividing by 6 to give us £255,000. Now the median is not £210,000. The median is the middle of a sorted list of numbers. So what we do is we place the numbers in order. And then if there's an odd number of numbers, then it's the middle number. But here it's slightly more difficult because they're an even number of numbers. So you take the two middle ones and then take an average of those. So we're taking 210,000 and 215,000 and dividing by 2 to get the median as £212,500. So well done for those of you who got B. This is obviously, house prices is a pretty sort of topical area at the moment. There's something called the stamp duty holiday. Hopefully you might have heard of that, which is a tax that you have to pay when you buy a house. And at the moment, that's being frozen, so you don't have to pay that up until the 31st of March. So lots of people are wanting to sort of buy houses before the deadlines, which has led to house prices increasing even during the pandemic, which is very interesting. Jim, can we go on to the next slide, please? Right, okay, so this is a tricky one. I think potentially the trickiest slide that we've had throughout this one. So give it a good go. In 2019, the price of a branded computer monitor was £280. In 2020, the same monitor now costs £310. The annual inflation rate between 2019 and 2020 was 2%. So statement 1 says the nominal price has risen by 9.7%. And statement 2 said the real price for the monitor in 2020 was £303.92. So have a go at that and try and put your answers in the chat if you can. In fact, thinking about it more, this is definitely the hardest slide throughout the whole thing. So you'll be doing well if you get this, but don't worry if it's not, because it's a pretty difficult question. Cool. We're starting to see a few answers coming in the chat now. If you're feeling really adventurous, if you think one of them is wrong, I'll be interested to see what you think the right answer is in the chat as well. Seeing a few D's around, a C, an A, blimey. All the letters coming out now. I'll give you a bit longer on this one just because it's a bit of a tricky question. Looks like the vast majority saying D. Give you sort of 10 more seconds on this one. Someone's saying it's a trick question. I wasn't intending it to be a trick question. Hopefully it's not too puzzling. Last few seconds then. A few more answers coming in now. Jim, can you show us the right answer, please? So the correct answer was C. So we'll have a quick sort of talk through that. So the nominal price has risen by 9.7%. That was statement 1. So why is that false? So as we've talked about before with the percentage change, when we're finding out the percentage change of £280 to £310, what we do is we find the difference, which is £30, and then divide that by the original figure. So don't make the mistake of dividing 30 by 310. You've got to divide it by 280, which was the original figure. Now that was 10.7%. So not 9.7, 10.7%. One thing to really look out for in the exams with these quantitative questions is how many decimal places the exam question asks for. If it's set to 2 decimal places, it would actually be 10.71%. So just keep an eye out for that. And the nominal price is the value that's unadjusted for the effects of inflation. So the real price, real prices now adjust for the price of the inflation, the 2%, which means we can value it at constant prices rather than current prices. So you can see the formula on the right-hand side. So we've got a nominal price in 2020 of £310. And then to work out the denominator, we divide the price index by 100. So the price index in this case is 102 because we've had 2% inflation, and assuming the base year of 2019 is 100, that means the price index in 2020 will be 102. And when that's divided by 100, that's 1.02. So we divide 310 by 1.02 and get the answer of £303.92. So it's really important that we have sort of get our heads around this idea of real and nominal values. Real values are great because they can show us sort of the actual purchasing power that people have. If your nominal wages have increased by 5%, for example, but inflation has increased by 3% at the same time, actually your real wages have only increased by 2%. So your purchasing power will only have increased by 2%. Don't always assume that nominal values are the be all and the end all. Fantastic. Moving on to the last slide now, I think, Jim. So it's a bit of a fun one. Well, fun in some ways that it's higher and lower. Not fun in the sense that it's about unemployment. But what we're doing here is we're going to see the value of the unemployment rate in Scotland to start with. So Jim, if you could just reveal that for us, please. So 4.6%. And now Jim will reveal the next region in the UK. Here we are, London. So do we think the unemployment rate in London is higher than Scotland or lower? Just put an H or an L in the chat for me. Louis thinks it's higher. Oh, a whole flood coming through now. A bit of a mix. Some higher, some lower. Jim, should we find out? So it's actually higher in London. So it's 5% instead of 4.6%. Now, London has been hit sort of particularly hard by COVID because it's obviously got a high concentration of retail businesses in the capital, lots of cultural, lots of hospitality sector businesses. So actually they've been really hit by COVID. So that's why they've seen a big increase in unemployment recently. Jim, what's the next region that we're going to have a look at? Wales. Wales. Do we think the unemployment rate in Wales is higher or lower than that of London? So unemployment rates, the proportion of the economically active population. Remember that, but it's not of the whole population, it's the proportion of the economically active population who are unemployed. And the economically active population are people in work and those who are seeking work and available to work. So you've got, again, mixture. Jim, do you want to put us out of our misery? 3.1%, so it's lower. Now, this is a really interesting one because actually in Wales, it's got a lower unemployment rate, but actually it's because there's been an increase in the level of economically inactive people. So actually an increase in people of working age who can't work, maybe due to long-term illness or things like that. And the final region, Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland, what do we think? Do we think Northern Ireland's unemployment rate is higher or lower than Wales? Got a few saying lower. Again, a good mix. Quite a difficult one, this, isn't it? Jim, is it higher or lower? It's lower, 2.9%. One of the lowest unemployment rates regionally in the UK has Northern Ireland. So that brings my section to a close. And I think we'll hand back to Jim just to wrap up. Oh, or just to us.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks, Ollie. By the way, and so London has one of the highest unemployment rates in the UK, and Northern Ireland has one of the lowest. I guess
that was great, wasn't it? That last activity. I thought that was really, really interesting.
It's a bit like play your cards right, Kathy, for those of a certain generation, including myself.
I'm not going to
Maybe we
say
should
how
put
many of those I got right or wrong. I thought this was fabulous, this session, guys. Really, really good to see so many people participating. It's just so important that you can get these questions right and not drop marks that you don't have to.
Yeah, now what we're doing, we're going to be running 2 live sessions a week, half-an-hour slots with on different topics. I think the one on Friday is on elasticities, and then we're going to work our way through the syllabus and basically build up lots of activities you can do. So please do join us. If you want to click the subscribe button below, that means you get first knowledge of when the sessions are. And basically from myself, from Kathy, from Ollie, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Great
much.
job, guys. Great job. Bye.
Bye-bye now.